It's in the air, almost everywhere. In office towers high above the hum of city traffic. In shopping centers and supermarkets. You'll hear it in elevators, in apartment buildings and hotels. You'll eat with it at restaurants. It's even in some hospital labor rooms. It's the ultimate saccharin of the airwaves. Muzak. Not music, Muzak.
Muzak is a type of music that is played continuously in the background of public spaces, airports, shopping centers, hotels. But Muzak is also a company founded in 1922 in New York by Army General George Owen Squire. In 1910, George Owen Squire, who at the time was executive officer to the chief signal officer in the US Army, invented what is known as telephone carrier multiplexing. Telephone carrier multiplexing is a system used to combine multiple analog signals to be carried over a shared medium. This invention made it so multiple telephone calls could be transferred at once over wires, saving resources. After World War I, Square began work on a way of transmitting music over electrical wires. In New York in 1922, Square created his company called Wired Radio. Essentially, wired radio, as the name implies, used wires to transmit music to businesses and subscribers. Subscribers would pay for wired radio as a utility on their electricity bill. For some time, it was a successful venture due to the limitations of radio at the time. However, by the 1930s, radio technology had advanced a lot and became cheaper, making it more appealing to buy a wireless radio than to subscribe to the wired radio company. The following year saw wired radio fall in popularity. Unfortunately for Square, he died in 1934, but before he did, he changed the name of his company from Wired Radio to Muzak, inspired by the name of the camera company Kodak. After Square's death, in 1936, Muzak sent its first broadcast to clients, and in 1937 it was sold to Warner Brothers, signaling a shift in the company's direction. The company moved away from sending music through wires and began delivering music to clients like factories and businesses. Also, the company started producing more of their own music, using their in-house orchestra, whereas before they used an orchestra to play instrumental covers of popular songs. Around this time, Muzak also began to be played in elevators to try and calm fearful passengers who were riding the elevators for the first time. This is what birthed the term elevator music, and if you don't know what Muzak sounds like, it basically sounds like what you would call elevator music. In 1939, entrepreneur William Benton, who later became a US senator, purchased the Muzak company from Warner Brothers. Benton's goals were to expand Muzak into more shopping centers, hotel lobbies, and other places to make it the background to people's everyday lives. By this time, World War II had begun and the US's economy was flourishing. During the war, industrial production increased by 96%, 17 million new civilian jobs were created, and many women and minorities could enter the workplace for the first time. An article states that Muzak's team began to focus more on the psychology of the music in commercial spaces than the technology that got it there. Let's now go into the actual sound of Muzak. Muzak is often described as a type of easy listening music. It's crafted to be as inoffensive and passive as possible. It sounds uplifting yet mundane and not very attention-grabbing. This wasn't accidental. This was an intentional choice, as when the industrial production skyrocketed during the war period, company researchers discovered that Muzak could apparently be used to increase worker productivity. While nowadays, the studies seem pretty unreliable, at the time, this is what Muzak used to promote themselves to clients to get their music in more factories and offices. And it worked. Muzak became even more popular during the wartime, and it became common to hear in public and in work environments. In 1950, Muzak patented the term stimulus progression, a musical approach designed to increase worker productivity based on the research discovered earlier. The strategy of stimulus progression was to use 15-minute blocks of Muzak to boost the morale of workers, then 15 minutes of silence to reduce what they called listener fatigue. It was also designed so that in the morning, the songs would be at a slower speed, and as the day goes on, the speed would increase in order to subconsciously influence the mood of the workers to be more active towards the end of the working day, when they would likely be tired. Executive Daniel O'Neill stated that when the employee arrives in the morning, he is generally in a good mood, and the music will be calm. Towards 10:30, he begins to feel a little bit tired, tense, so we give him a lift with the appropriate music. Towards the middle of the afternoon, he is probably feeling tired again. We wake him up with a rhythmic tune, often faster than the mornings. Muzak wasn't only used to influence the emotion of workers. Studies also showed that Muzak could be used to influence more goers, as it was said that shops where Muzak was played saw customers linger in the shops for longer, which led to more consumption. While it might sound shady to try and subliminally influence consumers to spend more with the aid of background music, it was and still is completely legal. In 1948, a DC transit system contracted Muzak to supply its vehicles, and as a result, angered riders brought a lawsuit. The lawsuit made it to the Supreme Court, and in 1951, it was ruled that the Constitution did not guarantee a passenger on a federally regulated vehicle a right to privacy substantially equal to the privacy to which he is entitled in his own home. This essentially meant it was completely legal for Muzak to be played in public settings, regardless of what people thought about it. By the late 50s, a large amount of the public knew that Muzak was being used to influence worker and consumer behavior, but it continued to grow in popularity and likely reached its peak in the 1950s and 60s. By this point, Muzak was inescapable. It was everywhere. At work, at the shopping centre, on public transport now, in hotels, it was hard to be in public and not hear Muzak. It was estimated that at its peak, 100 million people were exposed to it daily. It was so popular that it made it into the White House during Dwight Eisenhower's presidency. It even made it into space as NASA used it to calm astronauts during Apollo 11. In the late 1960s, public sentiment towards Muzak became more negative, due to its shady practices and the huge change in popular music in the 1960s. The 60s saw the birth of a new generation, and messages of radical change in popular music, like songs by the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, and a range of others. Muzak sounded outdated and corporate, and people knew that it was played for the benefit of businesses, and not for the everyday person who had to listen to it. A new movement had begun, and it was called foreground music, and it brought competitor companies like Yesco in the late 1980s. Foreground music is a type of music which is meant for active listening, whereas Muzak is meant to be unnoticed and played quietly. Seattle-based company Yesco had a different philosophy to Muzak, and cultivated playlists for companies that were composed of popular music in a variety of genres, instead of instrumental songs. Foreground music gained popularity, while Muzak became more and more unpopular. This continued into the 2000s, and in 2006, Muzak only had one elevator music playlist available for purchase. Eventually, Muzak filed for bankruptcy in 2009, but was saved in 2011 by Mood Media, who bought it out. Whilst Muzak as a company no longer exists, their morally questionable influence still lives on. While making this video, I found a website by AirScent International called the Top 9 Fall Ambient Scents to Increase Retail Bottom Line. They basically explain how using specific scents in stores can increase sales and influence consumers to spend more through things like nostalgia. It's honestly pretty interesting to hear about how other senses like smell are being targeted to achieve the same goals as Muzak did with our hearing. By the way, the scents that they offer are pumpkin spice latte, winter fir balsam, gingerbread, sugar plum, warm and nutty, cornucopia, mistletoe, hot spice toddy, and holiday harvest. Recently, there have been an increasing amount of studies which suggest that ambient scents in a store can lead to a customer staying longer in that store, in turn leading to more sales and more profit. A well-known example of this is Cinnabon, which uses ambient scents to attract customers. Cinnabon has such a specific scent that you can actually buy Cinnabon scented candles online. That's pretty much it for this video. To be honest, I kind of like the sound of Muzak. I had it playing in the background for some of the time I was researching this video. I don't like the manipulative intent it was used for, although in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't too harmful. Maybe if I lived in the times when it was played in public non-stop, my view on the music would be more negative. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for making it to the end. Let me know your opinions on Muzak, and if you liked the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Links will be in the description for the references and music I used. Thanks for watching and goodbye.